with counselors and chaplains that they would be in here to help for notification. A parent doesn't have an ID that, like JT had mentioned either, we'd have PD set up in one of these coaches' offices so we can go in here and make sure that we get all those checks done. Last thing we want is to give a kiddo to the wrong parent. Something else we've done in the county is we have a liaison that will leave here and go to KCH, to the hospital, because the kiddos are ours until we get them back to the parent. So they're going to the hospital. We went up there. The hospital's got wild firewalls, so we went up there and made sure that we could get out with our software and tested all that. So they're able to get up there and make those checks. So once all these checks, this has been checked again, then the wrangler walks them out here. So this is kind of the old way that we were talking about. So we'd have a couple tables here with some mics. So you come up, Johnny Smith, 3rd grade, go to your matchmaker. He would come to the teacher that's with the 3rd grade, would bring them to this table. The parent would be walked around to the table. This is where we keep that piece of paper. That's our CYA to make sure that we've done all our checks, and then they would exit. But with 1,300 kiddos, this is going to be crowded because we got a lot of dead space back here. So we are doing it this way now. So that we're utilizing much more space. Special needs, we got special needs down here in this corner because we have a high jump pit back here and there's a bunch of padding. It's kind of further away. So we can bring the special needs kiddos back there, and if they can be separated. But,
and with this middle walkthrough, parent shows up that's got one in 3rd and one in 8th and one in 11th. Instead of walking back around this way, they're walking right down the middle and collecting as they go, like you would have.
Right.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
And then with PD background, it's you got a better line of sight. You kind of keep an eye on everybody down the center. So that's just a very fast blow through.
Did you talk about the signage?
So yeah, the signage, I mentioned when the kiddos come in, they would see these signs that are marked this way. So once all accountability's been done, so we don't start any of this process up front until every kid is out there. We don't want any parent falso, or to be able to say we don't know. So once all that's happened, we turn all the signs so that you kind of get a visual that everybody in 1st and 2nd grade, they're at their station. So that we also do a confirm with radios. So I've got like 25 radios that are just for reunification that stay here. But that kind of gives us we can look out there and say, everybody's here. And
Are they like color coded to where like if you can't read it from afar, the signs?
But they're not color coded, but
Okay.
they're pretty big.
So they're blank
So they're
on
pretty-
blank on one side. So if you were standing and we can walk out here for those that haven't seen it. If you walk outside and you're seeing blank, then you know those groups are still collecting students, right? Well, the students coming in can see them from the other end of the building. Okay, this is where we go. Okay, well, we've checked everybody off. We've got everybody. We turn it. Now looking from this end, now I can see where it says pre-K kindergarten. I know they're there because I'm not seeing a blank.
Okay.
Wi-Fi,
Yes.
there's a separation for Wi-Fi for that side of the building and this side of the building, so we're not taking up bandwidth and things with kids on their phones or other things going on away from being able to communicate out here.
Yeah. So if once the folks start to get to start working in those locker rooms, then they would open up their laptop and it tells them which Wi-Fi to connect to with the password on it. The Wi-Fi out there is just a guess, open. So if it slows down, but it gives those older kids an opportunity with their phone if they want to try to get on and utilize that. I've got totes full of cup stacking games and coloring books and all kinds of stuff for the younger kids. We have some TVs that we would roll out, maybe throw a move, because this is going to be hours.
Yeah.
This is not going to happen fast. It's going to be a very, very long time. But
We've got a wrestling room across the hall, so smaller scale. Maybe it's a school event where you don't have as many kids at. If it's one of the private schools, we can actually utilize that room instead of the big gymnasium.
I mean, it was kind of earlier this week, we had a I talked to Scott a little bit about it. We had a fire at one of the nursing homes. I heard on a scanner, so I floored it out there knowing that we have MOUs with nursing homes. But on my way, I called the transportation director, hey, get some buses warmed up in case we need to evacuate. And I called Justin Sanford, the AD that runs this, be prepared. We may be bringing some elderly folks in the back door. And I called food service if we need snacks and water. So it's just not for schools.
Right.
This,
Excellent.
what JT mentioned earlier about the P20, that's where it all started. Our community is blessed to have all of us that work together to make sure that we have just everybody on the same page and we're all in it for the same reason. So, and I don't even think I had an MOU with those folks. We'd have figured that out later to make the attorneys happy, but we just luckily we didn't have to evacuate, but doing all this had my brain ready and just to make those calls, and we were ready to go if needed.
So as far as, food, we've got, canteening available, obviously, we've got Red Cross, we've got Salvation Army, they're in the midst of putting together almost like a food truck that they can roll out, but we also have two school cafeterias, well, 3 with the Career Center, right across the way we can pull from.
And then
You've got the Children's Hospital
Nationwide
now
Children's
has a clinic per se within the school.
Yeah, so we
Well,
have,
you're gonna put a medic too?
Yeah.
In your,
yeah. So our school nurses would come down and then we bring the nationwide nurses. So we have a clinic for our staff, our students here.
Our Knox-Licking County Mental Health Group has put money aside in their budget for some acute trauma care counseling training to get people vetted. Those will be the folks that are in this room, as well as the school counselors. And there again, that was hard to get through to school admin. Our counselors will take care of this. They're not trained for that type of
right.
care.
If
We
they're,
need somebody else, but we're welcome to have them to supplement. Same with our chaplaincy group. I brought a parent in here that dad works out of state maybe on a construction job. I'm in no way, shape, or form to drive myself to the Grant Hospital where you've told me my son or daughter have been to. Hey, Chaplain Jones, you got your minivan out there? Yep. Can you see that she gets, or can you make contact with a family member that can take her there? So we're trying to work with all of our partner agencies to get things done.
Because the idea of the counselors thinking they can handle it, I've seen that in person where they can't.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was just as simple as an accident. And then we actually had a critical incident stress management team brought in, but everybody wanted to go to the counselor first and found out after the fact that they're the ones that ended up needing help afterwards.
Yeah, so our CISM team, we're rebuilding that. It's been several years since they've kind of been active, and we really haven't had major incidents within the county where we've had to deploy them, thank God. But we're trying to rebuild that with new folks, some of the older folks that were part of it to begin with, want to get this up on the ground. So all these people that are working this have somebody to go to too.
I'm impressed that you thought of that. I gotta be honest, nobody ever thinks about that. So nobody ever thinks about the helpers that need that.
Oh, yeah. Well, law enforcement, there's times that you just gotta get it out, or you're cutting up the bottle or punching something or whatever, and I get that. I hold that close, so.
It's great to hear about the transportation side of it too, because you're going to pull buses in, because how many students are in this district? I mean,
So we have about 3,700 students average. So that's when I create an MOU, I create a very gray MOU so that it covers transportation, food service, the facility, and our folks. So I try to make it gray enough to be legal. Or does that make sense?
To pass the pen stroke test.
Yes, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all in it for the same reason, and why not work together?
I know one of the things that I think kind of spurred some of this too was the 2 unfortunate bus accidents too, and considering reunification while on the road. I know the Northwestern one was actually in district, but the parents were there before first responders were, which created issues. And the Liston County crash, they had the ability, I think the way it sounds, to set something up, but that's a whole nother component. How's it going to work? And I think that maybe falls more on EMAs if it's coming through.
That's what Vernon here for.
Well, and Rick shared with me yesterday some notes that 3 a.m. when his brain wouldn't shut off,
Yeah.
and he's writing down about how can we make a reunification plan for a festival that we've closed 2 city streets off downtown for that has nothing to do with the school, but we can still do this.
Actually, if I've got it written in my Google Drive.
Well, and-
2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, I couldn't sleep, so I'm making a reunification plan.
I'm glad you didn't call me.
Right.
We just met with our fire chiefs. Well, you weren't there, but it was a couple weeks ago. And I brought that up about, okay, it's not a school reunification, but our community. And they're like, and we never got an answer, in which that was okay, but it got them to thinking about, okay, where do we want to take them? Where, all of that stuff. And, they're clueless about it. And
When we did so now KCH has a pediatric reunification plan since all this has started. So it kind of opened their eyes, and that's for if something happens at community pool or with kids, out when school's out, I can still make some calls and we can use our program to make sure we get those kiddos back to the right parents. I mean,
And you've brought a number 212 recently that you're kind of training to do what you do. So in
because
the
I'm
event,
almost done.
in the event you're out west on a
Sure.
vacation or something, we do have that number too. There again, the whole idea of that countywide reunification team. I make the call, everybody shows up. I'm not going to turn anybody away. I want each spot 2 or 3 deep.
What was nice about the reunification that happened with the Tusky Valley bus crash, I don't know if you guys knew this, but so that's one of my schools. And what they did was they took them to a church. Superintendents that were attending the conference that were local, like New Cumberstown, Indian Valley, New Philly superintendents that were there went to the church after they heard and the conference got canceled. They went to the church to help out, and it was a big help that they had superintendents from the area that helped, with the reunification because, Mr. Murphy and, Derek was just so inundated with everything else that was going on. So, having people that are familiar faces and they know the name, that really helped out. So when I met with them, afterwards and also with the other superintendents, they just said, hey, if something like that happens in our area, because, down my way, it's very, very rural. I mean, I'm trying to think here how this can come to play all the way down there because we don't have things like this building down in my neck of the woods. We got fields. And it's, their reunification is a rally point, and I'm trying to get through to my schools, and I'm like, guys, no, that's a rally point. It's not your reunification. Your reunification buses may come, and we're going to be busing you guys, maybe to a different school district, going to their stadium, going to somewhere else. They just don't think like that.
Right.
So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind, too, on just reaching out to other superintendents and bringing them to help out, because they understand the school process on getting back, because reunification was a huge failure at Sandy Hook. I was up in Sandy Hook after it happened, and there were 4 parents that thought their kids were killed. They were told their kids were killed. Their kids were through the woods at a guy's house.
The runners.
Yeah, the 2 kids that were in the restroom that ran out.
That's something that's very, very important too, is communicating this plan with our kids.
Yes.
So, anytime that I can speak to our kids, if you have a cell phone, as soon as you're at a safe place, don't text us first, text mom and dad.
Yeah.
We need to slow them down. Hey, I'm okay, I'll see you in reunification. And then we try to do the best we can to let our parents know, you're not getting your kid at school or rally point, it's gonna be here. So we try to stress that. If we get 60%, that's a win. That don't go to the scene, So
Especially in a Danville, if you have
right.
60% show up in Danville.
Oh, and they're all showing up with cock blocked and loaded.
Oh, yeah.
I think for every
And
kid,
grandma
you're
and
getting
grandpa.
you're getting 4 people per every kid showing up.
Sure.
Doesn't matter if I'm not the the guardian, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, somebody's coming.
And
And that sparked conversation when we had that after action in Fredericktown. They take all this emergency contact information and it sits in that card file, right? It's not on their attendance that, well, grandma, grandpa could come pick them up too. Well, now we have a problem. You're taking that data and you're not using it. Is it gonna take more time? It sure is.
Well, and that's what they talked about. So my boys are in elementary at Fredericktown. Well, they rode the bus home. They told us that the buses were going to be like at 1:30 for the elementary to pick them up. Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, it'll be 10 minutes. So grandma should go pick them up at like 10 till 2. Well, I'm getting a phone call from the bus garage of, what do you want us to do with the kids? And it was 1:40. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, they went ahead and loaded those kids up and sent that bus